Welcome into Dating at Her Age. We want to talk about rearview mirrors and dating. Why is it, Caitlyn, when we look in the rearview mirror after we break it off with either a situationship or a dating relationship, we can see all the red flags in the rearview mirror that tell us we should have left a lot earlier, a lot sooner than we did. But we don't see these red flags when we're in the relationship itself. What are your thoughts?
I just think that yes, everybody has experienced this, and it's just easier to see things for some reason when they're not standing right in front of you. Because you take off the rose-colored glasses and the delusion, and sometimes it just takes some quiet time with yourself to realize what you were in.
What's twisted about this to me is I've had family members, I've had close friends when I've been in relationships approach me and tell me, I don't think that's the right guy for you. Mm-hmm. And they'll give me a list of, 1 or 2, 3 reasons that are very valid reasons. Like, you guys don't seem like you're on the same page when you are out in public together. It's like, I'm not quite sure it's a good fit. I had somebody once tell me about a relationship I was in. Wouldn't call it a long-term relationship, but they said, you seem to make yourself small when you're around him. I'm like, that's curious. Like, I actually you feel like I shrink? And they're like, yeah. And that told them that wasn't the right relationship for me to be in. But instead of recognizing that, I'm like, I'll just keep dating him.
Yeah. For some reason, it is so hard for us to take that information while we're still in that, and because we just don't believe it to be true because it's just infatuation. I don't know why, but I've experienced it as well with situationships where you're just kind of in this delulu of like, oh, it's all okay, and then you realize once you spend some time away, you're like, that's not okay at all, actually. But because I've been on both sides. I've been in situations where I know, like maybe deep down, far down, I have to go find it, that I know it's wrong and not quite working out, but it's also holding on to potential. I've also been on the other side where I've seen friends in situations where, you can tell them as much as you want, but at the end of the day, they just have to realize it for themselves eventually.
I have too. I have been asked by friends, do you think this is the right relationship for me? I'm like, no.
Yeah.
Run. And what I mean by run is run away, and instead they run right into his arms.
Yeah. We've all done it. Guilty. But yeah, and it can be really frustrating when you're on that side of it too, but it's kind of a let them see how it plays out. And most of the time when you have those gut feelings, they don't work out and they end up seeing it for themselves. And it's perplexing to know how it works and why we get entangled. But
you see, I think I get lost in the hope that things are going to work out. Mm-hmm. So the relationship is going to work out. So I think it's hope that is blinding me to the red flags. I'm hoping that, things will change. I'm hoping that we will be a good fit together. I'm hoping that he'll work out whatever issues he needs to work through so we can be a good fit. I'm hoping that when my friends approach me in public, they'll see that, we are a great pair. So I think it's hope that's getting in the way of me actually seeing the red flags. And what ends up happening because of hope is I delay the inevitable, mm-hmm. and I stay in the relationship far longer than I should. Yeah,
and you hold on to the potential of the made-up person that you likely created in your head of who you're with.
Potential, yeah.
And so maybe they've shown you that person, but that's not who they are consistently. Because that's, I think, something that happened to me is I've seen it and then it just disappears.
So you went digging around when I brought this up as a topic for Dating at Her Age, and you found this article in Psychology Today, and it published on February 20th of 2023. And it's written by Bruce Wiley. He's a medical doctor. And it's about relationships. It's entitled, Staying in Relationships for Far Too Long. Here's How to Stop. Let me just, the beginning of this article just really had me rolling because I can totally relate. He says, I still remember the day when I realized that I could not will not stick up for me. That, of course, was not her real name, but it epitomized the reason why my heart had decided at the time that she was not the one. And he goes on to say that a family member of hers wasn't being fair to him And he thought by having the conversation with her, she would kind of step in and take care of the matter and address it with the family member. But instead, she responded that this person was her family member, and therefore she could not do anything about it. And that in his mind, couldn't actually meant wouldn't do anything about it. And it was a deal breaker for him. And then he goes on to say, so what did I do with this realization? Did I take decisive action? Well, if decisive action meant dating her for another couple of years, then yes, I did take decisive action.
Yes, I feel like we all stay in things for too long. There's one thing also that is mentioned in this article that I just keep reading over and over because I think it is so important. Staying too long in wrong relationships wastes time and prevents finding the right relationship. So I think being stuck in that kind of cycle that you may not even realize, which him giving her the other 2 years, but it keeps so many doors closed when there's other opportunities out there. And I think it's all stemmed by fear as well. Fear of the what your life is when they're not with you, and
being alone.
Yeah, fear of being alone and just change because we want it so badly. And maybe we've been in it for so long that you don't know anything else. But in that time, you're closed off to other things. And while separating from it is extremely hard and painful, there are other opportunities. It's a one door closes, another opens. I see life that way, even if it's kind of in a hidden message. But that I keep reading that, and I'm like, that's so true, because I've witnessed that for myself and other people who have been entangled in relationships for too long, and once they break free of them, it's like the world opens.
The door is open.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think I've kind of always tried to live with one door closes, another one opens.
Yeah.
But that it doesn't mean I still stay in relationships far too long, and he calls them staying way past their discard by dates. Way past their discard by dates. How many of us have stayed in a relationship way past its discard by date?
Guilty.
Because if it's old salami, in the fridge, or moldy cheese, we're like, oh, we got to toss it out, because it just won't make us feel good if we consume it. But here we are in relationships that are rotting.
Yeah, and I think, I consider myself to be very loyal, extremely loyal.
Do you think that could
be
too
loyal?
Do you think it could be to a fault?
Yeah, but it's also like I don't like to just give up on people. So I think that maybe that's how I see that, when it's really not giving up on the person. It's just doing what's best for you. But I really like to see things through as much as I can. And then eventually that's just going to wear you down until you can't do it anymore. But that's how I see things, because I've never really felt like just a casual dater. I think that's the one thing for me, is I have a hard time knowing how that works, how people will just date people for a month and then move on to another person. I don't get that, because I just am so in depth with connections that I don't want to build a connection and then have it just be gone. So I think I've always kind of struggled with the idea of that. So that's part of me, if it's wrong, I just want to put my energy into it and until I know for sure that it's wrong, even if it's gone too long. Past the discard gate.
I would say that was very much how I was in my 20s too. I held on to relationships.
Yeah.
When I would, date with people, I would want it. I did not date around in my 20s. When I you met somebody and I got into a relationship, I stuck around for a couple of years. And what this author also brings up is that eventually, when you pass that discard by date, you start to lose that loving feeling, and you start to pull away. But instead of kind of confronting it, you don't. You confronting the situation and being honest about it. You don't. You just kind of let things fizzle, but it fizzles slowly out over time.
Yeah, and he mentions you make excuses for it. You explain away the problems. Yeah. You avoid the difficult, and you just focus on the positive. Which, yeah.
So when I was in college, 100,000 years ago. Now I was in the 80s. I was dating a guy I'd been dating for quite a while. I'm dating him through, I think, most of my couple of years of college anyway. And I could feel the relationship kind of breaking down. We weren't as close as we used to be. I was going in a different direction with my career. He was several years older than I was too, so his career was launched. It was well in the thick of things. But I was like, I'm going to be moving because I'm going to be taking a job. outside of the state, most likely. It's just kind of how journalism goes. You're going to be a couple places for a very short period of time, and then maybe you'll land somewhere for a longer period of time. But the relationship was fizzling, and there were a couple of things that were really kind of bothering me. The discard by date had long since passed, and part of that, what bothered me, concerned me, just had to do with his family. Frankly, I mean, it just felt like I didn't really fit in. There were times when I felt uncomfortable around his family members. I don't know why. I don't remember that far back, but I just remember feeling like this isn't really what I want long term. And I was also really pretty young. I mean, into college, what are you, 22? 22
Probably.
years old?
Yeah.
Yeah, I was about 22. Yeah, it's 4 years. 4 years up and out after 4 years in college. So 22, 21, 22. But instead of having that conversation with him, I just let it slide and I just slowly slipped away. Nowadays, when I get into a relationship, being in my 50s, I think I've changed a lot. Like, I'll just absolutely tell them, look, this is just not going to work out for me. So I have shifted in that regard. And I'm also, I think, getting better. I wouldn't say all the time, but getting better about trying to address the differences right away, fixing the issues if they're fixable. And when they're not fixable, if things are a real big deal breaker, like not having good relations with a family member, especially if, live in the same town and they spend a lot of time together, that could be a deal breaker. I would address it right away. And if it's not fixed, like if they're going to side with their family member and not side with me, I am getting a lot better about saying, this ain't going to work out for me.
Yeah.
And getting out of it, as opposed to like wasting my time or letting it slowly fizzle out and just ignoring it and hoping it goes away.
Mm-hmm. I think that is a maturity thing, because obviously and those types of experiences, when you have them for so long, is what teaches you how to deal with other ones in the future. Because I've definitely done that. I almost still feel like I dip into it sometimes with past experiences, because I am that loyal person who's always, I don't cut people off really, but I haven't been in a massive situation where I felt like it, but that's where I have a hard time with it. But I think that learning how to have those conversations and being mature about it is just an important thing. And it can be very telling if they want to have that conversation and how they accept it as well. When I've been in situations like that, I feel like you'll still see the red flags sometimes. Maybe you don't see them as obviously, but you'll find the one good thing that they did, and that will trump everything else. That is maybe a red flag and like a negative, and just be like, oh, but they did this. This is good. This is the one thing I'm going to hold on to. It's the one positive thing. But then meanwhile, they're just like hurting you all the time. So, it's really hard to manage that. But you have to have that conversation with yourself first, too.
When you said that, I think I tend to give them credit for things that
Anything.
Yeah.
Doesn't matter. Anything. Like, okay, they did that. They're working on that one thing, but they're still doing all of this.
They opened my
That's
door.
Like, not even, they texted me back once. Today they texted me back. I got it. I got them. Like, it's just things like that, like very minimal, but you always are just like holding on to something to justify it. And it's hard to realize that, it isn't going to work, but sometimes things aren't meant to it, but that's why you just hold on to anything that you can get, and that's what you're justifying, and that's what you're holding on to, but you're just kind of hurting yourself.
Yeah, no matter if you're holding on to it with a bobby pin.
Yeah.
You're barely hanging on like by a paper clip, but you're trying to make it work. I wish I could get to the point where my friends, if they talked to me about it, confronted me about it, bugged me about it, I would see it right away. Because I think friends and family, the ones we were really close with, really do have our best interest at heart, and they know us better than anybody. And when they see you with somebody that's not your person, they're going to see it before I see it. But it's, I can milk 6 to 8 more months out of a relationship that a friend of mine, a year ago told me I should get out of. Yeah.
And I think that when you have that conversation, like just if you've been on the friend side, it can be really hard to approach that. Maybe they don't even want to, and they'll just do like a very light hint instead of being real direct, but I mean, I think you have like a really good friend when they'll just tell you exactly how it is. But hey, sometimes people can be wrong and you live happily ever after. But I think that it's really important to put that judgment out there. But I think having that conversation can be hard if you're a friend, because sometimes I've been in situations where I want to say more, but I just keep it to the bare minimum of like, how are things going? Oh, like, did that concern you about that? Just asking kind of questions, but then you don't really push it.
So you don't want to insert yourself.
Sometimes. I mean, if it's like an abusive relationship, right?
No.
That's a different situation.
Mm-hmm.
If it's just someone who's kind of like, I think they're wasting time with someone, you're going to, just let that kind of fizzle out. But I mean, I've seen people, be financially abused, and there's only so much you can do. Like, you don't know if you want to tell, because they don't want to hear it is a lot of the experience that you can have with that. So just check. I think, you check on them, you ask questions of how things are going. And sometimes this is something my therapist uses on me. He just asks me questions and I answer it for myself eventually.
Oh.
That's what happens. Like, I just keep talking.
That's
talk therapy, a lot of it. I realized when I was in therapy, it was like, he's just asking me questions because I know the answers. I just have to tell them to myself.
And then the light bulb goes off.
Yeah, it's like, okay, I know the answer. This is the problem. This is why it's happening.
So if you are having a conversation with a friend about a financially abusive relationship that they're in, a question you would ask is, like, how are your finances? Oh, things are really rough right now. Oh, what's
Why?
going on?
Oh, this happened. I
and
signed
as
on
they're
this thing.
hearing themselves.
Yeah, and you just like they can end up. I'm not saying this is every situation, but this is just what I've dealt with, and also I've done it myself when I've said things out loud. So, but eventually, you just ask questions, and they'll either not want to talk and they don't say anything, or they'll just start venting and maybe get there and maybe be in denial for a little bit, but. I think that it is an effective way to do conversations with that.
Yeah. So what did this author do regarding the relationship that wasn't going so well with Will Not Stick Up For Me? He says, what I should have done was make it clear early on what the deal breakers were for him. And as soon as it was clear that she wouldn't confront her family member, I should have insisted that if things didn't change quickly, we should go our separate ways. He's like, he acknowledges, like, this may not have been a deal breaker for others, but it was for him. And that looking back, that other relationships has made, looking back at that and other relationships has made him realize that avoiding confrontation for the sake of harmony is not necessarily a good thing.
Like it says false harmony. Yeah, because you're just making something up in your head and you're avoiding that conversation. Nobody wants to have these conversations. But I think I'm like you. And I mean, I'm almost 30. I'm a month from being 30. And I think as I get there, I just don't want to waste time. But also, you do have to fill things out sometimes. But just addressing problems as they arise, if you have a partner who's willing to do that, I think that will determine the future for a lot of things. And not everybody wants to. They avoid it.
So would this have been a deal breaker for you, his situation?
I probably would have done the same thing. Honestly, like,
you would have stayed in it.
It depends on who I am, which version of me you're talking to. But it's really hard to say yes or no, because obviously I'm looking at this from the bird's eye view of his situation. Like, yeah, obviously that's bad, but when you're in it, I think I might have ended up being the same thing, doing the same thing and sticking with it. But I'm trying to, be more aware of that now. So hopefully I would be able to remove myself from a situation earlier. But it's hard to say because I don't want to just be that voice that says, yeah, you're wrong. I'm right. I would have done it this way because I can't say that I would.
I wonder if deal breakers for you, they're kind of like this for me. I have all these deal breakers. It's almost like, I'm at bat at a baseball game. And, I 3 strikes, 3 deal breakers and you're out. Oh, that one was a foul tip. You're still in the game. So I think instead of just leaning into, oh, these are my deal breakers, I tend to, like you talked about earlier, like make excuses or give a lot of leeway, somebody a lot of runway to have a number of deal breakers before I'm really ready and in a mindset to break it off. But all I'm doing is I'm thinking that through is I'm wasting my time. And if there's going to be confrontation with family members, or I'm uncomfortable at holidays or, at events, and that's a deal breaker for me, and they're not addressing it. They're just not addressing it. It could be anything. They're not addressing it, but it's a deal breaker for me. I'm either going to have to put up and stop talking about it and complaining about it, or I'm going to have to break it off. Because, we talked about my runway. It's way shorter than yours.
Who knows?
I'll be 58 this year.
I mean, I could get hit by a car tomorrow.
Stop.
We
got to edit that out. We got to edit that out. Stop it.
Anyways, but do you really want me to edit that out? It's true. I'm not lying. Anyone's day could end tomorrow. It could end today. I hope it doesn't. I'm just being truthful.
Well, don't try to make me feel better about my age.
Your age is fine. You're young. But yeah, no, I get what you're saying. I think for me, a really big deal breaker that I'm realizing now is after a while, if I'm not a priority to them, and it's pretty clear, like, when you're not a priority to somebody, that's a deal breaker to me now. And I don't have to be your main attention 24/7 texting me all day. No, I don't want that. But yeah, I need you to want to make plans with me. I need you to initiate a few things, and I'll do the same. Because I think in my past experiences, I feel like I've always been putting in the effort, and I know what it's like now not to do that. I know there's people out there who will make plans, and they want to do that. And I don't always have to be the one to lift everything. And you can feel it. You just feel when that's happening. I think that's my biggest deal breaker. And it's hard to see when you're young, maybe not even age, but just when you're new to a relationship, it's hard to see if you're the one fighting for it mostly.
So what if I came to you and said, I've been listening to you talk about this new relationship you're in, and it doesn't seem like he is making you a priority. You're waiting 24 hours for a text reply. He's not planning anything. You're doing all the planning. And you don't lean into what I'm saying. And now you're in the rearview mirror months and months and months later looking at the red flags from the rearview mirror. Do you wish you would have listened to me sooner?
Yeah, you're explaining a situation I've been in. So yes, I would, but I also think that it really takes your own cycle to just get to the end of it for yourself. No, even if you know.
But you're going to be 30 this year, Caitlyn.
Yeah, I know. Oh, I'm making changes.
So is your own cycle
yeah.
giving it, months for them to start texting you more often, to start making plans with you? Or is that new cycle of your 30-year-old self mean, I give the guy a month and a half, something reasonable, but not 6 months, a year, a year and a half of my time hoping that this will happen.
Yeah, no, there's a time where you're realizing, okay, I'm putting too much energy and thought into this and I'm not getting much in return. And I think it's like, if someone's trying to date you, it's like within the first month, and if it stays consistent, obviously that can fizzle too, because some people can sugarcoat it really early on and then kind of fade away. But yeah, it's something that I've dealt with for all of my 20s. I've dealt with that. But it's because it's not always been my top priority. I've been like, oh yeah, I'm just dealing with that. It's fine.
New decade, new you.
Yeah, we'll see. We'll try. No, there is. New me 100%. 30 is a...
We've learned a lot about dating in the time that we've launched this podcast, and new ways of dating, new ways of looking at it. Before we started talking about all these different topics, I can honestly say I would have totally kept dating will not stick up for me.
Mm-hmm.
I would have said, yeah, I'll just keep dating will not stick up for me. But it's not doing me any good. And I'm not getting anywhere. If my goal is to get into a relationship that's long-term, that's meaningful, that has, I have his back and he's got mine and we're supportive of each other, doing this, rearview mirror stuff and seeing the red flags long after I've left the relationship that I've been in for way past the discard by date is just a waste of my time.
Yeah, it is truly. And sometimes it just takes people longer to see it, but hopefully it's not for everybody and you can see things quicker. I just want to reiterate If you're staying in a relationship that that is unhealthy and not serving you, there are probably other things that you don't know about that are out there. And it's something I feel like I've kind of been trying to figure out for myself over the last year is like, okay, am I holding on so tightly to this one thing that I'm just used to when there's so many other opportunities out there, whether it's a relationship, a job, a different location, like whatever it is, like just, am I holding on to this life, this person that I wanted so badly and it's just not working out. You just have to let the grip go. It's really hard to do, but I truly believe that there's things that are better for you. And if things are meant to be, they'll come back.
Caitlyn, up next, I want to be the star of our Dater Hater segment.
I'm ready. Welcome back to Dating at Her Age. In this Dater Hater segment, we are going to go over to Debbie's TikTok page. You put out No Spend 2025 Dating Edition, and I thought this was funny, but there's a lot of stuff that is important to mention.
It's a little bit of a spoof on all the people on TikTok and social media who are posting videos about how they're going to low spend or no spend their way through 2025 as a New Year goal. But I did a no spend 2025 dating edition. And I did like 4 or 5 bullet points of things that I'm not going to do in my dating life. You want me to go through them?
Yes.
Will you read the comments to some of them? So number 1, no fly fishing trip dates, which saves me $83 a month. Because remember, I've talked about my $1,000 fly fishing trip date on one of our episodes of Dating at Her Age. No more of that. It'll save me $83 a month. That's part of my No Spend 2025 dating edition.
One comment says, you got smarts, just wish you didn't realize until after the fly fishing. This is exactly what we just talked about in this episode of Looking Back. And if you, on looking back and seeing something for what it was, but you didn't see it when you were in the moment.
I think one guy also posted on there, hey, take me fly fishing.
Yeah, because you would, apparently.
How about this? I'll buy the bait and you pay for the trip. Okay, the second thing that I posted on that is I won't be getting married. The second thing I posted as part of my No Spend 2025 dating edition, not getting married to my first date who asked to marry me for my health insurance coverage.
Yikes.
I legit went on a first date where he leaned over the table and said, can I marry you? Because I have health insurance. I have health insurance and he didn't. Hey, he has health insurance coverage. He just pays a ton of money for it. Needless to say, it was a one and done deal. I didn't go on another date with the guy, but I was just like, I was a little bit turned off. I didn't know whether to take that as a joke. Ha ha ha. I think he was kind of serious about it.
Yeah, I mean, I don't doubt. You have another comment I just want to mention. As smart as you are, I can't see how you get suckered to pay for the dates. If I ask you out, I pay the bill. That's very nice because I agree, but it's just rose-colored glasses.
Somebody called me smart.
Yeah, you are very smart. We all are, just sometimes
when
not.
I talk about my failed dating situations, I don't feel too smart.
We're all trying our best.
Okay, so the third one I posted is not buying any new clothes for first dates. That's how I'll be not spending any money on first dates because there won't be any first dates.
Yeah, I think that's great.
Yeah, and I haven't had any first dates in quite some time. And you know what? I'm at peace with it.
And you're saving money.
I'm saving money.
But you shouldn't be buying things on first dates.
You mean
that's my rule now.
No new clothes. Just go in the closet.
Whatever. Yeah, I'll stop there.
Not using dating apps at all, which I don't use. Usually, once in a while, I'll put a few bucks on a dating app, to see if whatever they have the one that costs, the level that costs some money. Usually I just do the free version of dating apps, but not using dating apps, which will save me my peace. So I haven't been using dating apps. I've promised Kristen Sokol, our dating coach, who's joined us for a couple of episodes, that when I get back on dating apps, I will improve my dating app profiles significantly. You and I, Caitlyn, will actually go on some golden hour hikes and we'll take photos of each other in the perfect light. So also be saving gas money because I'll be scrolling Pinterest on my sofa on Friday, Saturday, Sundays, Monday, Tuesdays, and Wednesday and Thursdays, and not going on first dates.
Yes, you're saving so much money and brain power.
And finally, although this was number 4 on my list, I will be purchasing solo tickets to events. So I will not be buying a ticket to a concert, buying an airline ticket. Yes, that's happened. For a significant other because I'll be flying solo.
I've been caught in that situation just with friends, and I think I'm trying to do the same thing.
What do you mean?
Well, just when you I'm going to buy 2 tickets because I know I'm going to go with somebody, and then or I'm going to be like, okay, I've got this ticket for you because we'll go, but then it doesn't end up working out, stuff like that. But yeah.
So you get stuck with
you just have the extra ticket and you have to find it, but just buy a solo one. But one comment on that says, I found when you go solo, you can get great seats at venues, which is true. It's an added bonus. A lot of the time you can.
I go to baseball games a lot on my own, and I'll just look up solo tickets. And this one time, I don't know, maybe last summer, I ended up sitting by a family of like 5 or 6 people right by them. I was the end seat, and they were the rest of the row, and they were amazing.
Yeah,
I felt like I was part of the family by the time we wrapped up the game.
I've been in situations with that too, when you go by yourself and someone just takes you in. I love that when they're nice people.
So that's part of my No Spend 2025 dating edition. I think you have to have fun with it because otherwise it's just like you can just get. I don't want to. I think we have to have. I feel like I have to have some fun with this.
Yeah,
I agree. So you can follow us on all kinds of different social media platforms, on Facebook at Dating at Her Age. We also have an Instagram page. We have a TikTok page. You can leave us a voicemail and we might play it back on one of our upcoming episodes. Why don't we give people the phone number to call?
Yeah, that's 801-575-5599. That's 801-575-5599. Or you can email us or message us on any social media platforms. Our email is daha@ksl.com.
Okay, and this has been a great start to a great new year.